All right, what's up? This is Matt with FinBomb. Today we're going to be skirting some lure heads. These can be for marlin, wahoo, dorado, whatever you're fishing for in blue water. So these are some heads that are already done. You notice a few things. Color is one of these, length is one of these, how these are trimmed at the bottom. These are relatively even, but a couple odds and ends. That's all personal preference. But one main thing is your lure head is going to have a color on it. You're going to want to match these colors up to either whatever you like or whatever fits the head, or whatever they're biting or whatever kind of bait is in the area. But you notice this is a blue head with blue top, and you have kind of a silver bottom, and you have the blue on top, and you have the silver white on the bottom with the sparkles. So that makes a lot of sense. I just did this one. This one is kind of, I just made it up, but you have a blue top and you have a dorado head on it. So I just put black as my outside skirt and kind of like a fluorescent yellow as the inside skirt. But I think it's pretty rad. It looks pretty good. I did not trim this yet. So this is literally just trimmed up to even, but this guy could probably be trimmed down about 2 inches to about a 12-inch total head, or a 12-inch total bait. These lure heads, most of these are gonna be Crane Lures out of Southern California. He's an awesome guy, makes great lures. I caught a 662-pound blue marlin on one of his heads, so I'm quite partial to his stuff. But let's kind of show you this. So this will be a head that got like ripped off by a fish, and you're gonna kind of see that and say, okay, what do I do? Well, it's pretty easy. First step is all you're gonna wanna do is get that off. Depending on what kind of line or rope or twine or whatever glue that your previous person put on or you put on last time to get the skirt to sit on the head, you're gonna have to get that off. So this is just wax thread. I'm gonna take here a little X-Acto knife-ish type thing and kind of cut gently along that wax. And once you cut a little bit, you're cutting a lot. It's gonna kind of release that whole piece. And I need to cut a little more. And once that releases, you should be able to just kind of pry all that garbage at this point right off the head. And this is what you're gonna be stuck with. So if you don't know, on the front of this, you're gonna see a lot of this chafe tubing, and it's gonna be melted down in kind of a rounded edge that's going to protect the front of your mono as this thing is working through the water. And believe me, it might not sound like much, but after this dives and bops around like 4,000 times in a day, it can wear out that little piece, and that's gonna be your weakest link in the chain. And that's what's gonna break with a fish. So it's nice to have that up front. If you don't have it, now's a great time to put that on and upgrade it. This is what's called a rubber stopper. It's really just a rubber cone with a hole drilled in it, and it's glued to the actual back of the head. And what that does is, let me see if I have a finished bait. So what that does is it stops, it basically keeps your whole rig, right, that's underneath the skirt in one position. So that crimp is gonna lock inside there and it's not gonna be able to twist, which means that depending on your personal preference of, hook up, hook down, it's gonna act as that keel and kind of balance. But if you have a hook that's spinning around and flipping, you could have a bait that's not really gonna have the right action or could spin in circles or whatever. So depending on what you like, I would say most people like the hook down. I've heard a lot of good arguments for the hook up, saying that, well, most of the weight's here anyway, so that's how it should ride. You're gonna hear a lot of different personal opinions. Just do what you like. At the end of the day, you're probably gonna be a better fisherman if you're confident, so do what you like. So that's what that's for. So once you get to that point, which is right where we are, just like this, you're going to want to pick a skirt that makes sense color-wise. So we're gonna take our old skirt and just discard it over to the left, take my blade and put it down so I don't cut myself. And I'm gonna pick out some skirts. So these, I believe, are 13-inch skirts. These guys, they're cousins, I believe, and that's called like Blue Ocean Manufacturing now or whatever. This is a Fathom. There's a whole bunch of different ones. At the end of the day, you do get what you pay for. The better quality ones are a little bit more pliable once you get them into hot water, which I'll be putting mine into hot water to kind of stretch it out. And you're not stretching the actual tentacles, you're stretching out right here. You'll see that this octopus skirt narrows right here at that point. So this part right here is what you're gonna wanna warm up to slide it over the lure head before you use the rigging floss to whip that thing down and lock it into place. So for this one, I had picked this out, and I've totally forgotten which one I'm gonna put on here, but I believe I wanted to do something that was in the ballpark of blue on top, and then kind of these fluorescent green and blues just underneath it. So I'm gonna take a look at this bait and see what that looks like. It looks pretty rad. I'm gonna change these and switch them inside and out and see how that looks too, with the blue kind of as the accent coming from underneath. This is really all personal preference. If they're biting one color over the other, well then it's not personal preference. You just throw out what they're biting. That's pretty obvious. But if it's just kind of whatever, go with what you're confident in. Go with what looks good to you. I mean, these fish are coming up and eating something that looks like a plastic, you know, skirt and a head. I mean, that's not really a fish, but you know, when they're in the moment looking through all that prop wash, they're gonna be curious and they're gonna wanna whack that thing. So go with what you're confident with and what you think looks good and what's getting bit. So I'm gonna go with the blue on the outside, final decision. So I'm going to have to put that one on last. So blue is gonna come over here to this side, and then I'm gonna get everything out of the way so that you can see. This one was done really well. I'm just gonna show you this one. This one was done by Brett. This guy actually has like almost perfect color because it's got that really golden yellow, like I don't even know what you call that, reflective tape, right? On the bottom of that lead that's inside. And then it has that beautiful like acid swirl blue on the top, and it really just matches all the way through. So this bait looks really good through the water. So I'm gonna put that guy to the side. We'll get this bit out of the way. We know my blue's going the outside. We know that my green's going the inside. So this is where you kind of wanna know what to do, and this is where you should be paying attention. In the meantime, I'm gonna get my rigging floss ready. If you're using this Tough Line one, it basically has this little hole in the side that you stick your floss through, and that is going to help you just pull the floss out and not have to deal with like a spool of rigging floss rolling around the deck or wherever you're doing this. So what you're gonna wanna do is just kind of in advance pull off about right there. 2.5 to 3 feet is perfect. This stuff is so cheap, it really doesn't matter. So what you're gonna wanna do is this. You're gonna take your lure head right here, and you're gonna wanna pick a skirt that makes sense. When you're at the shop picking these out, you're gonna see a massive wall of skirts. The bigger ones are gonna be at the top or the bottom, and they're gonna work the other way. You're not gonna wanna grab a skirt that's really small, and you're not gonna wanna grab a skirt that's really big. You're gonna wanna grab the one that makes sense with this. And essentially, at this octopus, right where if you flatten this out, this narrowest part, the narrowest part is supposed to go in the groove of the channel. So you see this is groove channel number 1, and then here's number 2. This is the outside skirt. The outside is farther forward. So that's gonna be slightly harder to put on because usually they're a little bigger. On some heads, depending on the manufacturer, they might be the same size, but you wanna just keep an eye on that because sometimes you do need 2 different size skirts. So what happens is we put these on backwards and upside, like inside out. And what's gonna happen is you're gonna have material running all the way up to the back of this channel right here, and then it's gonna be locked right here at the deepest part, and then it's gonna fold back. So in your head, you have to imagine, okay, I'm gonna burn this much material just going here and then flipping it over on top of itself. Does that fit? Does that make sense? Is that the right length? You can always cut more off the bottom later. You can do a V taper, whatever you choose. You're gonna hear a lot of different advice from different anglers. Go with whoever you trust. But let's go ahead and say, okay, this guy goes right here, it goes right here. On the back, this little divot is going to go on the back of this, and then, and I hope you can see that, but essentially, this guy is gonna go right there, and then we're going to want to cut right at the top. Okay, so essentially on this bait, we're cutting off something that looks like that, right? This part on this side is going bye-bye. So, this guy I like to take my time and kind of flatten it out, but I want to cut really flat. And I've already eyed how much, so I can just kind of eye it here because I'm good like that. If you're not good like that, you better figure out a system to cut it nice and flat and straight. You can always kind of like work it around in there when you're done, but the biggest thing is you want to make sure that this thing is nice and flat. If you cut it wrong, just fix it. Just take the time to fix it. There's no point in doing it wrong. So what we're going to do now is we are going to turn this guy inside out, It's somewhat warm out where I'm at. Normally, I'd have a cup of boiling water right here inside of a Yeti so it stays the same temperature for all of my skirts. And I'd flip this thing inside and out, nice and gentle, after I heated it up. But what I'd do is I'd have my cup right here and I would just dip the head right in the warm water. That right there is enough to get this thing on. What I might do is actually just go boil some water right now so I can show you the correct way to do it. There's no point in showing you how to do it wrong, because that's why you're watching this video, is you're trying to figure out how to do it right. So I'm gonna go make some water and I'll be right back. I've made my boiling water. I do like to put it inside of a Yeti cup, tall, small, doesn't matter. But if you put it in here, you're not gonna have to reboil your water every 10, 15 minutes, especially if you're in the breeze. So what we're gonna do first is I'm gonna show you, this says inside and out. You dip it in basically just like this, and you're not going all the way deep into the tentacles because you want those actually stiff and strong. As you're stretching this thing, you don't want to rip a tentacle off. So you really only want to warm up below the tentacles. That's a pretty good little tip right there, because it's easy, you know, especially when you're new, you'll be ripping just one of these or two of these, or it'll slip and you got to go spend another 10 bucks on another skirt. So that'll go there. What you'll need to do this is you'll need your rigging floss, you'll need a nice pair of scissors, a little blade is nice as well, you'll need your 2 skirts, and you'll need a lubricating agent. If you watch this video or any other video, pretty much everybody's gonna say use Pledge. It's because it works really, really well, and when you put water on it, it basically just washes it right away, so it's not gonna slip like a grease or an oil, and it's easier to work with in your hands, I think, and it's super cheap. So you can use this, you could use soap, you can use whatever you want. If you got it nice and warm and hot, you could probably just slide it over if you're offshore and you don't have that. So don't stress on it, just kind of feel your way through. This is like almost any other project. If you feel like you're breaking something, you probably are gonna break it. So if you feel like you're at like a 10 out of 10 and you're going to an 11 out of 10, just back off, get some more lubricant, put it on there. Don't worry about putting too much. You can always wash it off, but you can never replace a skirt once it's ripped. It's just garbage. So let's start here. Basically, we're gonna have our lure head right here. Either hand, however you wanna have it. But what I'm gonna do is shake this bad boy up. You wanna get that wax that's inside there ready. I'm going to take this guy and get it nice and warm. And like I said, just below where the tentacles are starting to get cut. All right, now it's nice and warm. Take this guy, open her up, spray it liberally inside there, and then take your lure head and you're gonna stick it right inside here just like that. Now what I like to do is grab in my other hand a microfiber cloth or something of the sort and squish it on. It is a little too cool for my preference. I'm gonna warm that sucker up a little bit more without rinsing all of the lubrication off, which is really on the inside anyway. Get it nice and warm. I'm gonna work it on. Now, here is the trick. You have colors on some of these skirts. You don't have them on all of them. If you have a pattern, you're gonna wanna make sure that your pattern matches your bait. The green on this one, I want on top right underneath that blue. So I'm keeping an eye on that blue top of the lure as I put this on of where's the center of the green, because I want it to go on correctly. If you're doing a skirt that's like this is just yellow and this is just a black skirt. It really doesn't matter how you put it on. You can twist it around in circles. It really doesn't matter. But keep in mind, if you have this, before you cinch this thing down and have to cut it off and start over, you're gonna wanna take just a little bit of time. So this guy, I'm gonna work on little by little, making sure that I got that green right where I want it. I'm gonna put it between my legs a little bit because it's a little easier. Bring it back up and kind of take a look. It looks like I am, what's cool about this is it has kind of like almost like a bleeding shoulders pattern. This has like black streaks on the shoulders, probably to mimic some sort of like, you know, fin, but it's really just a black line. All right, let's try and get this guy on again as I turn a little bit more to the left. I like going little by little because I'm not in a huge hurry. I can take my time and get this guy exactly where I want it, not damage anything, and not have to spend $10 more on a skirt. That's a big bummer, because more likely than not, you're doing this at night at your coffee table and it's like 8 o'clock and the tackle shop's closed, so you can't just run out and buy a new one. So I suggest take your time, do it right. It's fun, take some pride in all that, and it'll always come out good. So this is what you're gonna have right here. Notice how the back right here, just under the stopper, is literally flush with the bottom of that skirt. So that's exactly how we want it. Once we're here, we're going to take our rigging floss. This is 30 pound. You can use 30, 50, 40, like it really doesn't matter that much. You could probably just use dental floss and it probably will hold for many, many years. This guy, you're gonna wanna take a tag end like this. I like about 5 inches. You're gonna make a loop like that, right? And then you're gonna come down here, right in that lowest part of the cavity, and you're gonna make a loop. And you're gonna start to wrap it. It's gonna look like that. So you're gonna hold it and put some decent pressure on it without killing it. Don't like rip right through the rubber. But as you're going, you're kind of just putting another 5 pounds of pressure, another 5 pounds of pressure, evenly distributed on top of itself. And then pull tight. Once it's really good, you're gonna stick it through that loop that you created just like that. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna take that other end and you're literally going to pull through, and it's gonna pull that loop you made underneath all of those other wraps. Now, you can pull on both against each other just like that. A lot of guys will tell you, hey, just go up a 1/2 inch and cut right there. That way, if you're on your boat and you need to reskirt, you can literally just take your teeth and open that up or do whatever with pliers, not have to cut it, and you can mess with your skirt. I think that's super cool and dandy. I mean, once this skirt is literally back on top of itself, it's really hard for that to back off of itself with or without a knot. Now for me, I don't really have to mess with my stuff too much offshore. I've got what, like 30, 40 baits to my name, so I don't really care. I'll just grab a new bait. I'm sure another one swims great and is gonna get bit. So I'm gonna go an overhand to lock that guy down, and then I'm gonna do, in reverse, another double, like a surgeon's knot, and then I'm gonna go the other way and do like 3. You can do a box knot, I mean, like literally overhands, mismatch it. You're really not gonna screw this up. That skirt is literally compressing down on whatever knot, good or bad, that you're making, so it's not gonna come undone. And then I'm just gonna cut it off like that and leave like 3/8 inch tags. Now, since I'm gonna be messing with this, I'm actually gonna get it wet again, or warm again, just to make sure I don't have to re-buy a skirt. And then this guy is gonna pull straight down, all the way down. This is exactly how it's supposed to look. This is perfect. So you can see that it's nice and flush. That means that I've tied a good knot. I haven't done too many wraps where it's bulging in a bad way, and it fits this. It's almost barely too tight. I think it's pretty good. I almost want to twist it just slightly. So while it's still there and it has lubrication, I'm gonna twist this, because like I said, I want those lines on the side, directly on the side of my bait. Is it make or break? No, but you know, obviously these things are lures, but they're also art, which is why we all pay so much for them and try and find really cool ones. So, and there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So I'm gonna pinch down on that a little more, because you wanna have confidence, you wanna have pride in your gear. All right, rad. That looks really good. So that's my first stage. Now I'm gonna do my second one. The second one is usually a little harder than the first one, because you have to get it over the inside skirt. And on this specific bait, this right here is probably, I'd say, 1/8 of an inch thicker in diameter than the first one. So whatever effort I put on the first, I'm gonna do a little bit more on the second. So I'm gonna take this blue skirt with this striped top, because I wanted that on top, because this guy has kind of like a blue pearl on top. I thought that'd look really good. And I'm gonna do basically the same thing. Is I'm gonna look at that widest part, and then I'm gonna come to the front, and I'm gonna wanna cut it right there. So, take my shears again, measure it up, and again, in case you forgot, you're gonna go the narrowest part of your octopus skirt goes on the widest part of the groove, and you're gonna cut at the narrowest part of the groove, which is right here. That much is gonna be cut off. Which is cool on this bait. It coincides with a really easy to see black stripe on the back of the bait. So that's really cool. Okay, so again, we're going to warm this up in our water. Once it's nice and warm, we're going to flip it inside and out. And again, it being warm is your friend. That way you're not like horsing this thing inside and out and possibly tearing your skirt. You can use a heat gun. I wouldn't use a torch unless you're really, really familiar with a torch. You could probably use a hairdryer just fine. You might pop a fuse, but you can use that if your girlfriend or wife is cool with it. But I think that boiling water works really good. And I think that a heat gun also like variable settings works really good as long as it can kind of hold itself up and it's not like, you know, you're not fumbling around with it. The trick is you just want that, you don't want that to lean over accidentally while it's on and melt like a lure bag or something else. So what we're gonna do is we gotta get this guy on. We're going to get it nice and warm like this. We're gonna shake this up in the other hand. We're gonna open this guy up like this. I'm gonna let it sit there for just a second. You can see it's kind of just sitting in the cup, getting nice and warm. Now, at the proper time, I can just take this guy and spray it. And I'm gonna just use a bunch. Why? Because it's cheap and it works really, really well. So now we're gonna take the bait. I'm outside, so I got a little bit of wind to fight with, but it's not too bad. We're just gonna kind of let that sink in, just like that. Keep in mind our pattern. So once we have our pattern in the right spot and we know we've got it in the right spot, we're good. So a lot of times you can kind of just pull on both of these and it will literally just slide right over, just like that, almost exactly where you want it. What's really cool too is I'm gonna dip this in the hot, and that's gonna get it nice and elastic. And I'm gonna bring it back, and I'm gonna grab my towel, and I'm gonna be able to slide that bad boy right on. All right, so like I said before, I'm gonna kind of go between my legs because I've got a lot of control that way. And I'm basically just bringing it right over the backside of that bait. That lubrication, I mean, you're gonna literally feel it slide. If you do not feel it slide, you do not have enough lubrication. Like I said, do not be cheap with a cheap product. Get it on there, make your life easy. Don't spend another $10 on a new bait, just do it right the first time. Sorry, this is a little bit off camera, but really, all I'm doing is grabbing here on the bottom part of the skirt and I'm pushing here, but I'm just doing it between my legs because I have a lot of control. I do suggest doing that. Really just do whatever you have to do to get good control over this thing so that you're not tearing anything. It's nice to have it super warm. Like I said, every brand of skirt is gonna have its own inherent elasticity. So if you get hooked on a brand, stick with them. So that's what we're looking at. You can actually see how it goes down into its divot and then back to its highest point. And when you put that floss here, all you're doing is just constricting it at its smallest point and it can't ride up to its widest point. It's just not gonna go up there. And that's how your bait's gonna be able to be ripped through the water and not come apart. I'm looking at my black lateral lines. They're almost spot on. They're gonna match up nicely. So again, my little tag end fell out of that hole, but I'm gonna start over with the rigging floss, put it inside of this little hole here. And again, this is Tough Line brand, 30-pound rigging floss. There's a trillion brands. Get whatever you like, get whatever you're confident in. So I'm gonna pull like another foot off that. I wanna make this guy a couple more wraps than the other guy. So just like before, we're gonna take our 6-inch tag end, we're gonna put it right here. We're gonna make our little baby loop. Doesn't have to be big at all, just like that. We're gonna pinch it down, and now we're gonna start our wraps. First one barely has any pressure on it, and then we just kind of start it. And as we lay that wax rigging floss on top of itself, 2, then 3, then 4, then 5 times, that's when we start adding that 4, 5, 6 pounds of pressure. We're just slowly adding the pressure, and the more pressure you have at the back, that's on top of floss. You got to think, you're not like constricting with this little piece of floss. You're constricting a huge patch of floss, which is going to distribute that pressure evenly on that delicate rubber skirt. And that way we're not going to have a skirt just blow out on us. I can do one more of these and keep the tension with my thumb. And again, we're going to stick this right through the hole that we created, that little loop, and it's going to look just like that. Then we're going to take our opposite end and we're literally going to pull it. And you're going to feel it go boop and slide right underneath. Now we can lay our lure down, pull them at opposite ends. And like I said, you don't have to actually knot this thing. Just the pressure of itself alone is enough, but I'm going to do a double overhand and then a double overhand the other way, and honestly, it just doesn't matter. Any knot you want to do, we'll keep this thing on there for the duration until the lure is thrashed. Hopefully by quite a few fish. All right, so I got my little knots. Leave a 3/8 tag, you'll never see it. Now once I'm here, again, more hot water. Why? I'm gonna flip this thing on itself. I do not wanna have to go through the process again or buy a $10 skirt, so I'm gonna get it nice and warm. For every time that I do kind of a big move like this and pull it back on top of itself. Push it right through just like that, nice and gentle. This thing is awesome. That is beautiful. So you can see that is our finished product. And you can see that everything is the same height on top and bottom. It seems to fit. You're not gonna get any weird shapes that are gonna kick this thing the wrong way, which might get you bit, to be honest, but you never know. You might want it to just swim the way that the lure manufacturer intended it. You can see in the back how it's mostly blue, and then underneath we're gonna get this green with the blue stripe kind of poke through, and we have our lateral lines here that are all in the same zone. So this lateral line and then this one, these are from both skirts and they're right on the side. So at this point, this is where we're gonna kind of say, okay, we'll pull it down and we'll say, hey, every skirt's not gonna be even. This is what we've got, all uneven. So most people say, hey, chop it flat. Some people say, hey, no, make a pyramid out of it. Do whatever you want, do whatever gets you bit. After we do this, you might want to think of this for length. Talk to whoever made the head and make sure that the skirt's not too long or too short to mess up the action. But you want to be thinking about this part of it, which is, hey, I've re-skirted. What am I going for? Am I going to put stainless steel here? What kind of rigging am I going to use? Am I going to do a stiff rig? You want to think about how much wire you have. So if you're like, look, I just want a ton of wire because I'm going after something really toothy, I want a lot of wire. Maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe you don't need a bunch of wire. That's just up to you and how you want to rig your lure. But that is it. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments. I will get back to you, hopefully sooner than later, but don't hate me if it's later. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll be pushing out more videos on how to do different types of rigging for fishing and spearfishing. So thanks for watching. See you later.